Everyone in the Order knew Anakin Skywalker. Few would live to see what he became.
Before the end of the Clone Wars, I walked away from him and the Jedi.
Welcome back, everyone. This is The Way. There's a brand new Ahsoka trailer, and they finally put brand new footage of Anakin Skywalker in the trailers. Like, they confirm that he is going to be in the series with new footage. They combined some old footage with new voiceover dialogue, so I'll explain like the tricky way that they include new Anakin Skywalker in this. But I think the message that he's giving to her sort of gives away when this appears during the series. Of course, I'll be doing episode videos for when it starts in a couple weeks. Be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. I'll do a special giveaway during my episode videos too. So at the beginning of the trailer, you see more of that footage of her facing Baylan Skol's character and him talking about Anakin, like more of the actual conversation they have as they start to fight around that Jedi star map on that same planet. There's a bunch of different lightsaber fights happening on that planet. So you have Sabine Wren versus Shin Hati, who's Baylan Skol's apprentice. But while that fight is happening, in the background of that forest, you actually see Ahsoka fighting the Inquisitor Marok, who we're all kind of wondering who they're really meant to be. I think the idea is that she defeats the Marok Inquisitor character, and then she goes to fight Baylan Skol at the Jedi star map. That's when he starts speechifying about his history in the Jedi Order with Anakin Skywalker and how he knew who Ahsoka was because of his conversations with Anakin. So at the beginning of the trailer, the extra dialogue starts with him talking about everybody in the Jedi Order knowing who Anakin Skywalker was, but few living to see that he became Darth Vader, like who he became with the ending of Revenge of the Sith, because the whole idea is that Baylan Skol is meant to be a former Jedi that survived Order 66, meaning that he survived Anakin Skywalker. The way he's talking to her, it doesn't sound like he has a huge grudge against what happened, but it does sound like he's a little bit salty about it. We always post the Grogu meme, "I lived, bitch." But that's kind of the vibe coming from Baylan Skol, like, "I lived, bitch. Your master wasn't able to kill me." They didn't say where he was when Order 66 went down, though. I'm guessing that he wasn't on Coruscant. They cut old footage of Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader on top of this conversation. The footage of Anakin Skywalker is from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. It's the flashback of them fighting because he has his Padawan braid.
Are you? Then let's begin.
Remember, Ahsoka became his apprentice after he became a full Jedi Knight and the Clone Wars had actually started and he started to grow his hair out again.
What? No. There must be some mistake. He's the one who wanted the Padawan.
No. Master Yoda was very specific.
Then we get the actual new Anakin Skywalker footage, and it's actually voiceover of him teaching Ahsoka some lesson that he's giving her, and I think that it's actually meant to be the companion to the scene of her training Sabine Wren on her ship. It's basically a scene of Anakin telling her about the coming Clone Wars, like, okay, things are going to be dangerous, you're not always going to be fighting droids as in the droid army, because this is the Clone Wars. Basically giving her a pep talk as they get ready to go out on a mission, or he's trying to train her the way that she's trying to train Sabine Wren. You can do this, Ahsoka.
I know you can do this, Ahsoka.
So I think when we're getting that voiceover, it's an actual flashback like the one we saw in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. But I also kind of think that we'll see Force Ghost Anakin at some point, maybe even later in the series. Kind of the way during the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, we saw the flashbacks with Anakin Skywalker, then we saw present-day Darth Vader, and we saw present-day Force Ghost Qui-Gon Jinn at the end of the series. So it's kind of the same vibe with the way they include Anakin Skywalker, probably during the Ahsoka series. Like you see flashbacks to the Clone Wars with a younger version of Ahsoka getting ready to go out on missions with Anakin Skywalker, and him teaching her as his master, as he calls himself, "As your master, I won't be around always to teach you." During one of the previous trailers, Rosario Dawson was actually recapping Ahsoka's story in like 30 seconds, and there were a lot of people that had questions about a couple things she said. She referred to Anakin Skywalker as her Jedi Master, and she called Ahsoka a Jedi. During the Clone Wars episodes and then during Star Wars Rebels, she referred to herself as not being a Jedi anymore, and during Revenge of the Sith, Yoda and the rest of the Jedi Council allowed Anakin on the Council, but they very specifically did not grant him the rank of actual Jedi Master.
Allow this appointment lightly. The Council does not. Disturbing is this move by Chancellor Palpatine.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of Master.
What?
So when they use the new Anakin Skywalker footage of him referring to Ahsoka as her Jedi Master and his apprentice, and then Rosario Dawson referring to herself as a Jedi, what I think is actually going on is that Dave Filoni said that they did change a couple things about Star Wars Rebels and the Clone Wars, like they retuned the continuity just a tiny bit. In the whole master-apprentice relationship between Ahsoka and Anakin, just being the fact that he was her teacher. Part of why I think Baylan Skol is having this conversation with her about Anakin Skywalker is to confound her so that her mind is clouded and he can actually beat her in the lightsaber fight. But I also think what's going on is it's sort of that classic Star Wars trope of the dark Jedi or the darker Jedi trying to bend someone to his way of thinking. Every time you see a scene, even like Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order, when Cal Kestis runs into a dark Jedi or someone who has turned into a dark Jedi, they usually try to bend him to their way of thinking. Like, look, my idea is way better, follow me instead. One of the things that Baylan Skol is doing during the series, I think, is trying to pursue this new path through the Force in the absence of the Jedi Order, even though Luke Skywalker is in the midst of trying to build his own brand new Jedi Order. These two are meant to be similar in that they both left the Jedi Order at some point, like after Order 66, he left the Jedi Order, and Ahsoka left by choice before Order 66. So even though Ahsoka is not a dark Jedi, obviously, and he is, they're both doing similar things, pursuing their own path through the Force. It's kind of what Grogu is doing too. It's the same vibe. He also chose to leave Luke Skywalker's new Jedi Order. We don't know a lot about exactly what his plan is, like why is he working with Thrawn and what does he get out of the equation, because I think that's going to be a little bit different from the original Thrawn trilogy in the George Kaboa storyline, but he's sort of like the stand-in for that character in the books. Dave Filoni said that there would be some changes from the original Thrawn storyline, like they're loosely adapting the Thrawn trilogy for these upcoming seasons of Ahsoka, as well as that Thrawn movie, Heir to the Empire.
One of the terms we use is, the war between the New Republic and the Remnant Empire. So we're going to see, you need a conflict, and I'm, just kind of looking at a lot of the things that were written over the years in various expanded universe projects, trying not just to look at what John and I did, but we're looking at what was done kind of historically in the time period as a guide. There's a treasure of things to draw from, not just within our own series, but in the bigger galaxy.
There's a little bit of new footage of Ahsoka with Sabine Wren and Huyang in her ship trying to fly away, I think from Shin Hati, through all the different space whales. The whole idea with the Purgles, the space whales, is that they're meant to signify the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn and Ezra Bridger as well, people wondering where he is right now. They're the things that actually took them to the unknown regions because they can navigate hyperspace just naturally as part of their biological abilities. They had a huge arc for them during Star Wars Rebels earlier in the series, so Ezra called them for help at the very end. They might also be part of the reason why Thrawn was able to make it back, but because the unknown regions have been relatively mapped by the Chiss, the whole idea is that when they jumped to the unknown regions, he probably had at least a loose idea of where they were and how to get around. The way they've talked about his backstory during the series, like this missing time period during the original trilogy when he was lost in the unknown regions, that is where he found his new fleet of ships that you see here. I talked about this in my previous video. These look way more ornate, like they could be from the High Republic era. But I think they're meant to be kind of like the stand-in for the Katana fleet in the original Thrawn trilogy, like this missing fleet of ships that are really powerful and give him the edge in the battle against the New Republic. Part of the way I think they plotted this out is that they find Thrawn actually coming back, like he actually shows up with his fleet of ships by the end of the series. Everybody's like, oh no, we're screwed. The New Republic was wrong. He really is back. Because it seems like Mon Mothma and the rest of the New Republic Senate don't actually believe Hera and Ahsoka. They kind of gave that vibe during the Mandalorian series, like the New Republic were making just the same kind of mistakes that the Empire was, getting bogged down in a lot of bureaucracy and ripe for someone else, like a group of rebels themselves, that Thrawn and the Shadow Council are now acting like to come in and take over. Dave Filoni talked a lot about this, about how the Imperial Remnant is acting more like the rebels were before the original trilogy at this point. So if it seems like the New Republic has been acting really badly, really dumb during the last couple seasons of The Mandalorian, that's on purpose. They want to explain why it was Thrawn was able to come in and almost overthrow them. Now we just need footage of Grogu, the Mandalorian in one of the trailers, and some of the other Mandalorians like Bo-Katan and the Mandalorian tribes on Mandalore. Then they'll actually cover the war itself. The war will begin during the Thrawn movie. Kind of the way they began Revenge of the Sith with that giant space battle over Coruscant. There'll probably be a couple more trailers before episode 1 begins, but remember, they're dropping episode 1 and episode 2 at the same time, so we'll just do separate videos for both of those episodes, but then they'll just go to one episode per week like normal on The Mandalorian. There's a whole bunch of stuff coming up. Cannot wait to see some of the big surprises they have on the series. So if you have any questions about what's going on, or you spotted anything in the trailer footage for this Anakin trailer that I didn't talk about in the video, write it below in the comments. Click here for all my other Ahsoka videos, and click here for my brand new Loki Season 2 trailer video. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and this is The Way.